think of SharePoint, this is what you see. So to dive in more specifically into the application pool, there are two different concepts that I want to touch on real quick. The first of which is the managed paths, as well then as the general site collection and web application infrastructure. So within each app pool, we then have a web application, and within the web application, we can have managed paths. What a managed path is, it defines basically what the URL is that you would go to access a various collection. My content. Or you could have something where you can also specify that you're going to have a managed path that it allows wildcards. So the default one is sites. So when you create a new application pool or a new web application, it will then give you the option to create a new site collection at sites \**. And what that means is when you're actually doing the site collection creation, you can type in whatever you want there. But this managed path functionality allows you to organize and control the virtual topology and information architecture of your site. And then within the site collection, we can create multiple site collections that contain different content. So within the site collection, we have a root web. That's what it's called, the root web. And then under that root web, you can create multiple different pieces of multiple sites under that. So you could have a team site, you could have a wiki, and all those different sorts of functionality you can have contained within your site collection. Now, security, content databases, and just general big, large functional units of this is its own space is scoped at the site collection level. So if you want to try, and I don't really mean that this is a good analogy, but a site collection is loosely correlated to a documentum repository. At the highest level, that it has its own security context, that it has its own content store, that sort of thing. It's kind of like that. But really, when you start looking at an entire SharePoint installation, whereas in Documentum you might have one massive repository, you end up segmenting this into smaller site collections. So there can be hundreds, if not thousands, of site collections contained within a full SharePoint installation. Within each site collection, as I mentioned, you have both the hierarchy of the individual site collection itself and the different webs. But then you can also have other things, because we have only really talked about the web. We have only talked about the actual way you navigate through SharePoint. We actually haven't said, well, how do we actually manage and get any content in here? Well, the first thing to consider is that a site collection, abbreviated SC, can contain webs. And then webs then, so either the root web, remember this is an actual web, or the subwebs can then contain lists or libraries. These lists and libraries are what actually contain the data. So lists are used for metadata, and when you want to store just tabular things. And then libraries are where you actually store your documents. And all of these are represented by an object type. So when you start jumping into the programming, they're all called a list item. And that is a general overview of the different components of a SharePoint installation. And next what we'll jump into is looking at the server and seeing how you get to the different components as you navigate through.